Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. In this video, I'm going to show you how to establish site-to-site connection between your Azure and AWS. Alright, so for this, I've documented all the things in my GitHub repository. I'll make sure to drop the link to that in the description box below. So basically, this is the architecture that we are trying to build. Okay, so as you see here, we have both Azure Virtual Network and AWS VPC. So virtual network, I'm not going in detail about what is virtual network, what is AWS VPC and all. So this is just a demonstration. So we'll go over the demonstration only. But if you want to know what are those, I have created separate videos on those. Please go ahead, watch those videos. Okay. So right now, this is the virtual network. And inside this Azure Virtual Network, so we are going to have two subnets. One is for subnet 1 and the other one is gateway subnet. So that is where we create virtual network gateways. Okay, and this is a CIDR range that I have selected for this particular virtual network. All right, so this is a subnet 1 and this is its corresponding range. And this is gateway subnet and this is the range of the gateway subnet. Similarly, this is the VPC in AWS. So virtual network is called as VPC in AWS. So this is the IP address range that I have selected. Here also I'm going to create a subnet with a VPC sub. We call that as VPC subnets. And here also I'm going to create a virtual private gateway. So when we establish site-to-site connection, so we will by default get one tunnel. So if you want to go and create one more tunnel, you can do that by tunnel as in where the data will be transferred. Okay, so we can do that, but in this demonstration I'll just show you how to configure for one tunnel. So don't worry what is tunnel and all. So as and when we progress in the video, we'll be explaining that. All right, so this is the high level architecture that we are going to demonstrate in this video. All right, so first one, we'll follow these steps to not to confuse. I am just going and following these steps that I have written here. Okay, so ignore the typo here, sorry for that. I did not have much time to record this video, so there are few typos here. I'll make sure to correct it when I upload it to the YouTube. All right, so first one is to configure your Azure. So inside that we need to create a resource group on Azure to deploy the resources on that. Okay, so let's go ahead and create a resource group on Azure with this name. Okay, so let me go to my Azure portal. So this is my Azure portal. So let us go ahead and create a resource group. I'll click on resource group. So these are my resource groups that are already created, but the one that I'm creating now is RG Azure AWS. Okay, so I'll place this in East to West. If you see region, I have selected East to West. Sorry, this one region is East to West. So I'm good with this. Next, tags, review create, and validation passes. So click on create. So we just created a resource group. All right. So the next step is to create a virtual network. So we need to place this virtual network within the resource group that we just created. All right, so let me go back here. Let me go to home and search for virtual network, or you can also get it from the recently used. I'll click on create. I'll create a new virtual network. Under resource group, select the one that you just created, RG Azure AWS. Name I've given here in the document. Copy the same name, but if you want to change and alter something, you can do that. As this is a demonstration, I'm going with whatever I have mentioned here. All right, so this is the name, and for address space, I'm going to copy this address. Okay, so region, I'm okay with East to West. Address, paste the one that you already have here, right? So this is the address. And subnet, we need to create a subnet. I'll copy the name of the subnet. Here, if you see add subnet, click on that. You need to provide the name here. Provide subnet 01. You need to provide the address range, sorry. Copy this. So this is the virtual network address and this is the address space for your subnet. Okay, so I'm dividing that network into this one. Okay, let me paste that here. Leave rest as default and click on add. So you need to wait till this appears here. Okay, so we are good. Next is security. I'm not going to alter any things here. I'll keep that as default. Tags, I'll not add any tag. Review and create. So let's wait for the final validation. After validation passes, click on create. So now we have created virtual network inside our Azure. Okay, so let's see what is the next step. Next, step 3 under configuring Azure we have is to create the VPN gateway. So VPN gateway creation will take more time, at least 20 to 40 minutes of your time needs to create only the VPN gateway. All right, so let us go ahead and create the VPN gateway. So for that, after your you need to wait till the virtual network gets created. Now if you see, the virtual network deployment is complete. Okay, so this confirms that our virtual network is created. Okay, so if you see, this is our address range. Now let us go ahead and create a virtual network gateway. So you can search for virtual network gateway, or if you see this lock symbol, you can select that one. This is the virtual network gateway. We don't have any of them right now. Let us create one. Let me click on create. Select the same resource group. Okay, first you need to provide the name here. Let me copy the name here, VPN Azure AWS. Provide a meaningful name so that it will not confuse you. Okay, select the region where you have created your virtual network. I created in East US. I am selecting the same thing. So gateway and all, leave as it is. Don't change these things. VPN, we are not going with the express route. Policy based is for legacy. As we are going with the new age systems and new age routings, go with the route based. Okay, SKUs, I've also provided that here. You can see here VPN GW1, VPN gateway generation 1. That means I'll select that one. So we are good with generation 1. If you see, I'm saying that go with the generation 1. Okay, select the virtual network that you had created. So this is the virtual network that you have created. So if you don't get the virtual network here, that means you are selecting the wrong region. So please make sure to select the right region where you have created the virtual network. All right, so that is one thing that you need to note. So previously we need to separately create the gateway subnet, but right now we have the option that is getting created automatically. So even if the gateway subnet is not present in this VNet, it will automatically getting created. Okay, so it gets created automatically. Previously we had to go to our virtual network and create it. Let me show you that also, how to do that. So we need to just go inside our virtual network. So all right, so if you come inside this virtual network, okay, so if you see in the right hand side we have subnets. Go over that. If you see, you have create gateway subnet, right? If you click on this, you were able to create the gateway subnet here also previously, but as we have progressed, Azure has made it simple. On the go itself it is creating. Okay, public IP address type, so you need to select public IP address type as basic. If you see this one, all right, so let me copy the name of the public IP address and I will go with basic. Okay, so I'll create a new public IP address. I will give the name as PIP VPN Azure AWS, public IP address, PIP as in. Okay, so next is you need to disable these two. If you enable this doesn't work. Okay, so please make sure to disable those items here. If you see, these things needs to be disabled. Okay, and this one, as and when you select this generation 1, it will automatically change to dynamic, so don't worry about that. Okay, so you need to make sure it is dynamic and the public IP address is basic and these two are disabled. These are the key things here. After this, tags, review, create. After the final validation runs or passes, you can click on create. See, this step will minimum take 20 to 40 minutes of your time to get created. All right, so it depends on your luck. If you're lucky enough, it will get created very quickly, but minimum 15 minutes you have to wait it. So I'll be back after 15 minutes. All right, now if you see, the deployment is complete and it took minimum 30 minutes for me. All right, so you need to wait for 30 minutes to get the virtual network gateway to be deployed. All right, so let us go inside this resource. Let us look what are the details that we have. So if you see, this is the public IP address. We need this public IP address. I'm going to tell you why we need all those things. All right, so these are the information related to your VPN that is inside your Azure. All right, so let's go over here. We have completed the step 3, that is to create a VPN gateway in Azure. Now let us start configuring our AWS cloud. All right, so let's go over there and create a virtual private cloud that is similar to your virtual network in AWS. All right, so for the name, I'm going to use this one, my VPC 01, and the CIDR is this one, 10.10.0.0/16. So you need to make sure that the virtual network CIDR and your VPC CIDR doesn't overlap. If you see, I'm using 172.10 and here I'm using 10.10. So you need to make sure that both of them are not overlapping. If they overlap, you will not be able to establish a connection. All right, so please make sure that, and let's head over to our AWS console. So this is my AWS console. If you see, I have VPC here. Let me click on VPC. So it will take me to our VPC management console. This is my VPC management console. By default, AWS provides one VPC that is known as default VPC. So I'm not going to use default VPC. I'm going to create a new VPC. All right, so here you need to select VPC only. All right, so let us configure rest of the subnets and all separately. But now we are only our intention is to create VPC only. Okay, the name, I'm going to use this name, and you need to provide a IPv4 CIDR. So you need to select this IPv4 CIDR manual input, and you need to provide the CIDR here. Let me copy from here. So this is the CIDR that I'm intended to use. Let me come back here. I'll push it this Azure to the end. Okay, so I'll paste this one here. So if your organization is using IPv6 already, you can select that, or you can go with the no IPv6 CIDR. Okay, tenancy, I'm good with default. So after providing all these details, click on create. So this will create your VPC in AWS. Okay, so next, step 5 is to create a subnet inside the VPC that we just created. Okay, so the name of the subnet will be my subnet 01. Let me copy that and come back here. So this got created right now. If you see, the CIDR is this one we selected. All right, so now let us go ahead and create a subnet. So to create subnet, in the left hand side we have subnets. Go over here. So the ones that do not have names, so these are our default VPC subnets. If you see, the address range doesn't match. The IPv4 CIDR doesn't match with our VPC that we just created. All right, so let me go ahead and create a new one. So to create new one, it is asking a VPC ID. You need to select the VPC that you just created. See, this is default and this is the one that I just created, my VPC 01. You can verify the IP address also. Select that one. You need to provide a name to this subnet. I'm going to provide my name, so my subnet 01. So availability zone, you can select any of them. I'll go with East 1A. So that is what I think I've given here. So if not, you can go with any option. That doesn't matter actually. All right, so I'm going with the IPv4 CIDR for our subnet is this one. This is our VPC CIDR. Okay, so I'll copy this one for my subnet. Okay, so you need to provide that here. After providing, you need to select that one. Okay, so click on create subnet. So this will create a subnet for you. If you see, this is the subnet that we just created. All right, so let's see what is the next step. So next step 6 is to create a customer gateway pointing to the public IP address of our Azure VPN gateway. So if you remember, so we created a VPN gateway and we had a public IP address there. So we need that public IP address to create a customer gateway in AWS. All right, so let us go to AWS console back here. All the way down in the left hand side. Okay, so you have something called as virtual private network VPN. Under that you have customer gateways. Select customer gateways. If you see, I do not have any customer gateway right now. So let me go ahead and click on create new. It is asking me for name. So let me see here what is the name that I've given. Okay, so if you do not have any name, you can provide your own name. For example, let me say CW AWS Azure. That means customer gateway AWS Azure. Okay, so you need to provide the public IP address here. So let me get it from the Azure. So if you see IP address, you need to give the public IP address of your Azure VPN gateway. Okay, so let me go to Azure. So this is my VPN Azure, so that we just created. So if you see, we have public IP address here. Copy that public IP, come here, provide it here. You need to remove these unwanted things. Okay, now we are good. So this is our public IP address. So rest of them I'm not going to touch anything. So only I'm just giving a name and adding the public IP address. After that, click on create customer gateway. So this is going to create a customer gateway. See, the customer gateway that is created. All right, so let's see the next step. After creating the customer gateway, we need to create a virtual private gateway in AWS and also attach it to our VPC. So after creating virtual private gateway, you need to attach that to the VPC. Okay, so we just need to provide the name for this VPG. So we'll go to AWS console again. All the way down here, if you see under customer gateways, the next step, the next item we have is virtual private gateways. Select that one. If you see, I do not have one, let me create one. You need to just provide the name here. So VPG AWS Azure is the name that I'm providing. Click on create VPG or virtual private gateway. If you see, as we create, it would be in detached state. So select this one and click on actions, attach to VPC. So here you need to select the VPC. So my VPC is this one, my VPC 01. I'll select that one and click on attach to VPC. So if you see, the state is in attaching state. It will take few seconds to attach this particular virtual private gateway to your VPC. Alright, so let's go over the next step. The next step is to create the site-to-site VPN connection in your AWS. Okay, so for that we need these details to be filled. Okay, so let us go over one by one. So first we need to provide a name. I'll copy the name here, VPN AWS Azure. So let me copy this. Let's come back to console here again. So if you see, the state is attached now. So let's go ahead and create a site-to-site connection. Okay, so again in the left hand side under VPG, so we just created, under that we have something called as site-to-site VPN connection. Click on that. Right now I do not have any VPN connection, so it is saying 0. Now let me create one. So it is asking for a name. I'll provide the name here. So what is your target gateway type? If you see here, target gateway type, our target is virtual private gateway. So you need to select that one. So if you see, target gateway is virtual private gateway. Select the one that you just created. If you remember, this was the one that we just created. I'll select that one. You need to select the customer gateway also. So we also created customer gateway in the previous step. So you need to select the same thing. So I'll select this one. Okay, so that is the only customer gateway that I created. Okay, next routing option, select static, right? So routing option, it requires BGP, but if you remember in our Azure, we did not select BGP. We disabled that one. So we need to go with static here. Okay, so you need to provide the static IP prefixes. If you see, this is the static IP prefixes. So this is the IP address. So what is this IP address? If you remember, this is our Azure subnet IP range. So let me go back in the previous steps here. Okay, so if you see here, subnet IPv4 address space, this is the IPv4 address space. So I need to provide that in my Azure also. Okay, so let me copy this address space. I'll go to my AWS again. I'll paste it here and select that one. Okay, so after selecting these things, leave rest of them as default and click on create VPN connection. Okay, so it will take some time to create your VPN connection. If you see, the state is still pending. So if you refresh it, the state should change it actually, but it will take some time to create. Okay, so after creating this one, let me come back and let us go through the next steps. All right, so now if you see, the state is been changed to available. All right, so and if you go to tunnel details, we have by default we will get 2 tunnels, and this is the details about these tunnels. And if you see, the status is down, that means it is still not up. So we have not configured yet, so we will go to configuration and all later. The next step would be to download the configuration file. So if I go back to my steps here, so 9th step would be to download the configuration file. So let me go back here, select the VPN. Okay, so click on download configuration. Here you need to fill in some details like vendor, what is the platform, what is the software, IKE version, all those things you need to provide. So that is also given here. Vendor, you need to select generic, platform generic, software vendor agnostic. Okay, so let me select the same thing. Vendor, I'll go with generic. Let me type for generic here. Platform, it automatically changes to generic. Software vendor agnostic. Okay, so rest of them leave that as default and click on download. So this will download a txt file. Okay, so let me open that. So this is how the file looks. Okay, so it has got all the information. What is your VPN connection ID, virtual private gateway ID, customer gateway ID, and it will contain your shared access signature, pre-shared key. So this is the pre-shared key. So you should not share this information online. So as this is a demonstration, I'm showing it to you. After this, I'm gonna anyway delete this connection before I upload this video to YouTube. So it has got all the information. We need this shared key when we configure it, right? So we basically get 2 tunnel, right? So if you see, this is tunnel 1 information. Okay, so this is the information here we have. And again, we will have our outside IP address, inside IP address, all these things will be there. In the similar way, you will have it for tunnel 2 also, right? So you will have outside, inside IP address for tunnel 2 also. Do not share this file outside to any person outside of your organization. Okay, so even if he is the person inside your organization, you should not share these details. Okay, so that is highly important. Okay, so after downloading it, cancel this page. We have downloaded that file and saw what is there in that file. Okay, next is let us start connecting to Azure and AWS. Okay, so for that we need to create the local network gateway in Azure. So let me go back to my Azure now. Okay, so let me go back to home. So if you search for local network gateway, you already have this here. Select that one. If you see, right now I do not have any local network gateways. I'll click on create. So these are the details that I need to give. So I'll copy the name. So local network gateway, Azure AWS, I'll provide it here. Resource group, select the same resource group where you are operating, that is RG Azure AWS. So place it in the same region, that is East US. Do not change the region because you will not be able to connect it correctly. Okay, so let me type in East US. So where is East US? Okay, let me type it correctly. Yeah, here it is, East US. Need to provide the name. I'll provide the name here, LNG Azure AWS. Okay, endpoint, I've selected IP address. If you want fully qualified domain name, you can select that also. Okay, IP address, let me see what is there here. So if you see IP address, get the outside IP address from the configuration file that we downloaded in the step 9, right? So this is the configuration that we downloaded. If you see, I showed you that outside IP address, right? So you need to copy the outside IP address, right? So this is the IP address that you need to copy, virtual private gateway IP address. Okay, so copy this IP address. So right now I'm going to demo for only one tunnel. So if you want the other tunnel, you can you can create 2 local network gateways and add the other IP address also. So if you see, we have another IP address, you can add that also. Okay, so right now I'll just copy this one and go back to my here Azure portal. In the place of IP address, provide this one. Okay, so after providing that, in address space, specify the address space of your VPC. So if you remember, this is the address range or the CIDR range of our VPC. Okay, so let me copy that and paste it here in the address space. Okay, next is advanced. Do not change anything here. Review, create, and click on create. So this will create a local network gateway for you. So it will take some time for the creation of local network gateway. By the time, let us see what is our next step. So the next step is to create the connection on our virtual network gateway in Azure. Okay, so if you remember, we had created the virtual network gateway in Azure and we need to establish a connection now. So after creating the local network gateway only, you can establish the connection. Okay, so let me copy the name again. First, let us see if the local network gateway has been deployed or not. If you see, it is still under progress. Okay, now the deployment is complete. Okay, so now let me go back here. We have to select virtual network gateways, and this is the virtual network gateway that we selected or created. Okay, under this one you have something called as connections, right? So select connections. Right now, if you see, I don't have any connection. So let me click on add. So you need to provide a name here. So I'll provide the name here, connection Azure AWS. Connection type, you need to change it to site to site because we are trying to look into site to site connection. Virtual network gateway, you will not be able to alter this one because you are already in VPN Azure AWS and this is locked, right? So you need to select the local network gateway. So we created the local network gateway just now. So click on that. If you see LNG Azure AWS, this is what we just created. Select that one and shared key, that is PSK. So if you remember in the configuration file that we downloaded, I showed you that there is a shared key, right? So you need to provide that shared key here. Okay, so let me go open the shared key or the configuration file. If you go all the way up, if you see here pre-shared key PSK, you need to copy this entire thing. Don't copy extra spaces and all, just copy the things that are there and paste it here. You should not share it with anyone else. Please be careful while operating this one. Okay, so after providing the shared key, so if you see, get the shared key from the configuration file. So wait till the connection status changes to connect. Okay, so now let me start. Do not change anything, click on OK. Okay, so this will start creating your connection. Okay, so now let me go back to my VPN in AWS. Go to tunnel details. If you see, still it is down. Okay, so let me try to refresh this page. So it will take some time actually, so to establish the tunnel and all. So let's see, this tunnel one should change the status from down to up because we are operating with this outside IP address, and we have used the PSK of this particular tunnel. We did not touch the tunnel 2. So tunnel 2 will be always down in our case. If you want, you can create one more local network gateway and provide the details of tunnel 2. But right now we are operating only with the tunnel 1. Okay, so this should be up. Okay, so let's wait till then. So after this connection establishment is completed, right? So it is still creating the connection. So after the connection is complete, so this status down changes to your status as up. Okay, after waiting for exactly 2 minutes, the connection has been added. So if you remember, this is the connection, that name of the connection that I gave, and the status is connected. Okay, so the connection type we selected was site to site, right? So let me go back to my AWS console also. If you see under tunnel details, the tunnel 1 is up, the status is up. So if this tunnel status still is in down state, that means you have made some mistake while configuring it. So you need to repeat all the way from the beginning and start digging what mistake you have made. Okay, so make sure the status in both AWS and Azure is up or connected. Only then we will be able to establish the right connection. Okay, so now we have established the connection already. So to test out few things, right? So let us create an internet gateway in VPC. okay, in AWS, and attach it to our VPC. Okay, so let me create a internet gateway with the name my internet gateway. So basically this helps in routing the traffic to our internet. Okay, so to do that, go all the way in upside. We have something called as internet gateways. Select that one. So by default we'll have one, so this is attached to our default VPC. Okay, so let me create new. So I'll create new with the name my internet gateway, okay, and click on create gateway. Okay, so we have just created the internet gateway, but if you see, the state is detached. We need to attach it to our VPC. I'll select attach VPC, and if you see, I have this one, my VPC01, that is the VPC that I created, and I'll attach this internet gateway. Okay, so now if you see, the state changed to attached state. Okay, so now let us go with the 13th step, that is to edit the route table associated with your VPC. Okay, so we need to edit the route table. Let me go back here. In the left hand side, if you see, we have route table. Select that one. We'll have two route tables. One is attached to our default VPC, so other one is attached to our VPC. If you see, this is the route table that is attached with our VPC, my VPC01. Okay, select that and come down here. You have something called as routes. Select that one. If you see, right now I only have one destination and target is local. Okay, and the status is active. Now let us go ahead and create two more routes. Okay, so these are the routes that I need to add. First, the destination should be your 172.10.1.0. Basically, I am allowing this in the route table of our AWS. So this is the subnet of our Azure. So I'm allowing the subnet of Azure in AWS. Okay, in Azure it will automatically add, but whereas in AWS it doesn't add automatically. So I will show you in the Azure case. So it is automatically added, but in Azure, in AWS, you need to explicitly add it. So let me copy this one, go back to route table, click on edit routes, click add route. You need to provide the destination, the copied IP range. Okay, so this needs to go via, if you see, virtual private gateway. Okay, so just select virtual private gateway here. If you see all the way down, VPG is there. So this is the VPG that we just created. Select that one. Okay, next we need to add one more route. So if you see, we need to add destination. This is the destination, and this goes via internet gateway. So rest of these routes, other than the IP address that we are specifying, rest of them should go to internet is what we are saying there. Okay, so let me copy that and paste that here. So this is the range, and I need to select the internet gateway. This is the internet gateway that we just created. Select that and click on save changes. So this will create two extra routes for us. Okay, so we had only this one previously. Now we added two more routes. Okay, so that is what we have done. So next, let us test this connection by creating the virtual machine. Okay, so what I've done is I have created virtual machines already. So this is my AWS VM, and these are the details about our AWS VM. This is the public IP address. This is the private IP address. If you see, 10.10.1.142 is our private IP address, and all those things, the required details and all, it is here. All right. So similarly, I've created one more virtual machine inside my Azure. So this is my public IP address, and this is the private IP address. I've noted private and public IP addresses here. If you see, AWS private IP is this one, Azure private IP is this one. If you want to verify, you can just do that. 1.142, 1.4. Okay, so if you see 1.4 in Azure, right, 1.4 in Azure, and 1.142 in AWS. So 1.142 in AWS. Okay, so I've also logged into both of the virtual machines. So if you see, this is Azure virtual machine and this is my AWS virtual machine. Okay, so by default, Azure user will be your default username, and EC2 user will be your default username in AWS. Okay, if you just want to check, you can run who am I command. So this will tell you what is the username basically. Okay, so your Azure user here, you can run the same command here. You will see EC2 user. Okay, now let us test the connection. Okay, so for that I'm going to ping. So from Azure virtual machine, I'm going to ping AWS, and from AWS virtual machine, I'm going to ping Azure virtual machine. Okay, so let me copy this one. So I'll ping this IP address from my AWS. Okay, so this is my AWS, and I'll just type in ping with this IP address. Okay, so now this is the private IP address. So if I hit enter, so this is establishing a connection. See, we are getting a response back from our Azure virtual machine. So without establishing this site-to-site connection, if you go ahead and try this one, you will not get any response. Okay, so now let us do the same thing in Azure VM. Okay, for that I need to copy my AWS's virtual machine. Okay, so let me go ahead and copy that, and I'll type in ping, and I'll type in the IP address. Okay, so if you see, I'm not getting the response back. That is because I have not allowed ping ICMP protocol in my security group of AWS virtual machine. Okay, so let me go ahead and do that. So if you're not getting any responses, that should be because of your firewall or the security group related issues. Okay, so let me go back to my AWS console. Under security, I'll open this security group that I've created. Okay, so if you see, this is the only inbound that I have. Inbound rules, I'm allowing SSH, right? But ping works with ICMP protocol. So for that, I'll go ahead and add one more rule. I'll select ICMP if it is there. Okay, so all ICMP, I'll go with this one, and I'll go with let's say 0.0 itself for now. But if you want to specify your Azure range, that is also fine. Okay, so save the rules. Now automatically after adding this one, it should allow the traffic. See, you are getting the response back from your back from your EC2 instance. Okay, let us fine tune this one. Let me go ahead and add only the address space of your Azure virtual machine. Okay, so this is the address space of the Azure VNet. So let me add that here. So instead of allowing from everywhere, so let me remove this one and add this one. Okay, so let me hit save. So even then it should work. See, if you are getting the request back, request and response you are getting from both the virtual machines, right? So this confirms that our site-to-site VPN connection between Azure and AWS is successfully established, and we are getting the response. All right, so that's it for today's video. I hope you learned something new with this video. So if you're liking the content that I'm creating, please subscribe to the channel and share it among your friends. I'll see you in the next one. Until then, bye.